Have all been through.
It is. It is.
I want to not hours specific. But yeah, it's a little bit, but other than that, just if somebody else with owl. See, it goes wherever you. I don't like it.
Yeah, so the trouble is. They don't. Oh, that's. You know, there's. For example, I've got.
Josh, what's his name?
That's when I'm. And. You can see, I mean, real good. Street design, so. One house, that would help solve it. You still got signs and you're on campus. This, Summer house.
Yeah.
It's great. That's why it's short. I got my.
Supposed to get a new meeting.
Got that for the front door.
So yeah, gonna same schedule as my mom's.
I was supposed to just looking back the street the other way, so I see if folks
Was in the groove getting wheeled down.
this is a hiding hole.
Hallway, yes.
See,
Surgical, puts his hand on my foot
and
and
then
then
that's
for
for
the
the
side.
back gate.
It's swell.
That's going into the back gate on the other side of the house, but this is an approach by the bushes, so I wanted to get that.
It was kind of like.
This is the back and.
Yeah, prep and.
Yes. It's, but, it's good.
Better than safe. Yeah, no, I had been
House,
out.
it's very tasty.
The triage must weren't.
I guess.
It took the actual like surgery to put his hand.
Anyway, that's something to think about, so.
Well,
Right?
yeah, April.
But, you know,
Yeah.
I think it's smart.
Yes, can you hear me?
I know.
Yes, we can.
Don't ski.
Okay, good.
I did see after 4 minutes.
Yeah. I know. That goes out of school.
No, it's soccer. Last year. But I asked him, since there's now precedent, you might as well go ski. Yeah. That's what I, what's the worst that could happen? You could have a terrible accident.
I never tore up anything, Steve. But airplanes are, so let's say. I am now, but I wasn't back then. In anything?
No.
Good.
Yeah, it was very short.
Good.
Painful to be so slow. So.
What would drive me crazy is just that loss of instant mobility. So, I don't see, well.
Yeah.
Hey, Clary, do we have it? Well, I guess I'll wait. Oh, wait a minute. Hi, everybody. Thanks for hanging with me tonight on the line. My lighting sucks, so it's just going to be a little angelic Northern Light style tonight. I also do have 4 dogs with me, so I'm going to try and mute myself if they get out of hand, but there's a good chance there's going to be some dog chaos.
Yeah.
All right. Good evening, everyone. It is February 12th, our February Eugene Police Commission meeting call to order. So reviewing and approving the agenda. It looks like Commissioner Bertrand is having some technical difficulties, but he is here. Okay, so review and approve agenda. Does anybody have any, well, oh, the motions. I always get caught up in the motions. Do we need motions?
Move to adopt the agenda.
Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
I second.
Anybody in opposition? This is gonna be fun because I can't see everyone. I apologize. I think other than Commissioner Bertrand also has his hand up, so it looks like it's unanimous. Moving on. Thank you, everybody. Do we have anybody for public comment this evening?
So far, there is no one online waiting. Is there anyone from the audience that would like to speak? No, no one has signed up.
Wonderful. Okay. Moving right along. So looking at the January 8th minutes, looking to approve those. First of all, do we want to have a motion does anybody want to have a motion to discuss those meeting minutes?
Move to adopt the minutes.
Second.
Okay. So open for discussion or just vote?
Jack has his hand up.
Commissioner Rady.
I have no corrections for the minutes.
Oh, yeah.
How about that?
Page 694.
All right. Anybody else have any potential comments, concerns? Well, alrighty then. We will move. Oh, I'm sorry.
One correction, I was absent and I'm listed as voting in the line. I noticed that, so you can just remove my name from the very last paragraph that is bolded on the last page of minutes.
So you need a very bold motion. Do action.
Thank you, Commissioner Neal. All right, so with that adjustment, do we want to move forward? All in favor to amend with removing Commissioner Neal from voting and moving forward with approving those minutes with that amendment? All in favor, please raise your hand or say aye.
I
Aye. Thank you all. It looks like that is unanimous. Moving forward, liaison reports. Commissioner Neal, we'll start with you.
Okay, January, we did not have a CRB meeting. We typically don't in January, but we did meet on Tuesday. And we reviewed 3 cases. One was a service complaint that a civilian who filed the complaint originally requested that the CRB review because they sort of had they didn't agree with the findings of that, but we did review it and sort of found that the complaint seemed to be unfounded. But then there were 2 cases that we reviewed that related to police department interactions with federal police, including ICE officers. And there were 2 different incidents and they were incident reviews. So it was like lots of people had called in to complain about potential EPD interaction or support for ICE officers. And in our review, which the board did in preparation for the meeting yesterday, we watched body worn video, we watched dash cam, we sort of read reports, we saw a lot of evidence that there was no evidence that the Eugene Police Department did engage to support ICE activities or immigration enforcement activities. We did talk a lot about how public safety agencies do need to coordinate broadly on public safety in communities, and so there certainly is communication between those agencies. And in our review, you know, the civilians on this board sort of felt like that is a fine line that the Eugene Police Department is trying to walk as best they can to be able to support general public safety for all Eugene citizens and also follow Oregon statute and local laws related to not supporting immigration enforcement. And so it was kind of a robust conversation, and we both basically felt like the Eugene Police Department is doing a pretty good job of trying to parse those issues. There are public safety issues that come up when, you know, an immigration officer is a federal, public safety officer is doing their job. That sometimes the Eugene Police Department will get involved in, and we did sort of see those incidents. One was a vandalism of a federal employee's vehicle with the employee inside, and it did seem to be, you know, sort of a scary situation for that employee. And without sort of saying my own opinions about the actions of federal enforcement of immigration, I think it was clear that it was important for the police department to help resolve a public safety issue for that particular federal employee and sort of deal with property crime and deal with safety in that case. And that's sort of the outcome of the review that we did yesterday. But it was really useful for us to do that review. I think if you wanted to watch that meeting, the auditor's also here if you wanted to ask any questions, maybe from the audience, but that was the majority of our conversation. The other thing that I'll just mention is there are two policies that I think one of them might, or sort of a collection of policies might be coming to the police commission in the future about body worn video cameras. And I think the civilian review board perspective will be useful in that conversation whenever that does happen, just because we review a lot of body worn footage and dash cam footage and all that stuff. And so when that, if and when those policies come to the police commission, I think the CRB would be useful to either invite in, or I can, you know, participate in that conversation more robustly. And then the other is with property storage and sort of property management when folks are arrested. We've seen some cases recently where it just felt like there are some nuances to property storage that we could maybe discuss for the betterment of our community as a whole, so we aren't arresting people, releasing them, and also making them pay lots of fines to retrieve really important elements of their personal storage, like, for example, walkers and other mobility devices or vehicles. We've seen some cases where it's just been sort of disheartening to see the like various impacts to people when they get involved with law enforcement. It's not that we didn't think that the police department did anything wrong, but it's just storage of vehicles and storage of property is a difficult thing to sort of navigate. There may be ways that the policy could help that. That was my long, but hopefully complete report.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Neal. Let's go with Vice Chair Bradley.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm providing a report on the Human Rights Commission. The HRC met on the 20th of January and received, one of the things we receive in the HRC is a regular update, a monthly update from Eugene Police Department Liaison Lieutenant Williams. He always does an incredible job giving us a hate bias crime update. Of course, we receive that information. We also receive monthly bias incident reports from Office of Equity and Community Engagement. Those are regular agenda items, but I'm not certain if everyone is aware of that. We have that, but it's close communication with EPD. And we discussed, of course, concerns related to immigration enforcement and human rights implications for federal enforcement of immigration in the community. And talked a little bit about commission vacancies and some restructuring of the meeting itself. And specifically around our land acknowledgement language. And we are in the middle of completing our annual report, and we'll start work on our work plan for the next 2 years here very soon. That concludes my report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Bradley. Councillor Groves.
Thank you, Chair. I want to start by saying that Councillor Ye asked me to say that she has a work event tonight. She's going to try and join us later virtually, but she may or may not be able to. So I'm it from the council for this evening. I've been gone for a couple of weeks, so I'm still trying to dig out of my hole and catch up. I think two of the bigger things going on is we were able to negotiate a contract with our new to-be city manager, who's coming to us as the city manager from Beaverton. She has a lot of really good experience. She's been through some tough things, so I think that's well positioned her for coming to Eugene. So that's one thing. Last Monday night, the council passed a resolution basically calling the current situation we're experiencing in our community a humanitarian crisis. I generally don't put a lot of stock personally in resolutions. I don't think they accomplish much, but in this case, if it helps some people in our community, feel more comfortable in knowing that their elected officials are concerned about their safety and well-being, then to me, it's well worth passing the resolution. So that's in place. We've also received our TAG report, and that's the group of CEOs and CEFOs that came. TAG stands for Technical Advisory Group. They looked at our budget from top to bottom, developed a really good understanding. And I mean, these people were putting in incredible times, 8 to 10 hours a week, plus meetings. And in 11 weeks, they went through the whole thing and came out with some recommendations. And now we're getting ready to start the next phase of that, trying to look at our long-term financial stability, which is important for every service the city provides, including police and fire and well, everything. So we're looking forward to that. One of the things I personally really liked about the process is we all now have a common understanding of the budget, common understanding of the challenges we are facing, and a common understanding of what some of the solutions might be. So now it's just a matter of pulling this together and getting some more community involvement and coming up with a strategy that keeps the ship moving. Those are the main things for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor, and welcome back.
Thank you.
I hope the hole is not too deep and you get caught up swiftly and smoothly.
I have a big shovel.
So we will be moving on to commissioner comments. Let's see here. Vice Chair Bradley, would you like to start this evening?
Oh, sure. So I apologize for missing the wellness center visit today. I was really looking forward to it. I got caught up with the groundbreaking and they wouldn't let me go. So I apologize for missing it. I'm excited to hear about the observations on implementation of eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, or EMDR, and the Alpha STEM program that you all have here, both of practices that I'm interested in and have some training in. It's been a little while since I've been a primary therapist, but I've been supervising for some time, but spent a good bit of time in training and work at Fort Knox, Kentucky on EMDR and some of the earlier days of the modality. And so it's helpful for this setting and for our law enforcement officers and all people who have experienced trauma, because though we often associate trauma with gun violence, policing, combat, the most common occurrence that humans have in our culture related to trauma, it's really motor vehicle accidents and sexual assault and rape, which impacts a very large portion of the population. And modalities like EMDR, for instance, have shown significant efficacy and are helpful. I'm glad to know that these are options for law enforcement here. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Bradley. Commissioner Rady.
Yeah, we had a lovely tour of the wellness room, and the most impressive thing to me from the discussions regarding it in the last year is that it is increasingly accepted in the department by the rank and file as something to do, not something to be embarrassed about. And we could hardly ask for more. This means the program will be very effective, I suspect, because that was the obstacle to overcome. And there's work being put into it. There's a nice facility, and bravo. I want to speak about the events of last Friday, I guess it was. And I just want to say from my perspective, as someone who has been in many demonstrations and more than a riot or two, the actions of the Eugene Police Department were the most exemplary, professional, and oriented towards safety for everyone involved that I have ever seen or heard about anywhere. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to congratulate this department, the chief who made the decisions, and the people who are out there on the line for what they did in keeping people safe. I know it's not widely appreciated on either side of the spectrum, but from my perspective, I could not imagine better. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reedy. Commissioner Espinoza Blake.
Thank you. I've been gone for a couple of weeks because my daughter's had a baby, so I've been up in Portland. But I've been reading the Register Guard pretty religiously and kind of keeping track and talking to other people in the community about what was happening. And it was very, very troubling about how things had gotten out of hand. But in agreement with you, Jack, is that I thought that Chief Skinner, I read a lot about what you had to say in the Register Guard, and I appreciated your comments and your action. One of the things I think that with the young people and my generation, that there's a little bit that we have to teach them and make him, and I could understand where they're coming from, is that their actions of protest is a right that they have. And at this point, they're feeling so frustrated and so angry at what's happening with the administration that they're getting out and they're exercising their right. So that being said, in the past, the people that you are protesting against were not some sort of law enforcement. This is the first time that they've come across that. And so they're seeing, I'd say the younger generation, my generation too, we're seeing that the federal government is coming up and showing up, and their initial way that they're working is lawless. And they've killed people, they've shot their canisters directly at people, they've shot into areas where there's children, doing things that we have always said, that's crossing the line, you don't do that, but they're doing it. So the frustration is we're showing up and we're protesting, but the protesters then are being looked at as you're doing something unlawful when they're showing up to protest. I also understand that there are people who unfortunately are being paid to come in and rouse up the rebel rousers and do things that are illegal, so that gives even more ammunition to the to ICE officers to say, well, now you've crossed the line and this is what we're going to do. So it's kind of a real, it's a sticky line, and it's very frustrating and it's very unfair, and I share in all of that, and it's really made me heavy-hearted for the last 3 weeks seeing what's going on. That being said, I am very, very proud of this city, that people have shown up to protect people in our community that don't look like them, that they don't necessarily hang with, but that they understand that there's an injustice happening. So I really love that about our town. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Commissioner Espinoza Blake, and congratulations to you and your daughter. Commissioner Donovan. Donovan. Thank you.
I attended the wellness tour, and I think there's a lot of great work being done there. Beautiful space. And then was able to secure a spot with the Citizens Police Academy. So I'm excited to learn more kind of behind the scenes and how things work.
Thank you. Exciting. It's going to be fun. And if you like to participate, there's a lot of exciting stuff going on the participation front. All right. Commissioner Wilgus.
I will be joining you at the Citizens Academy. Looking forward to it. I thought I'd also mention that this week I had an opportunity to sit in on a new meeting happening downtown that is so exciting to me. EPD brought on the Downtown Peer Navigators recently, who are doing great work. And now We have our peer navigators, our co-responders, our EPD downtown station manager, and our downtown guides meeting collectively every morning that they're on at 9 a.m., having a roundtable discussion, trying to figure out how to help our people who are critically in need downtown. And I firmly believe that this collective action is what we need to move the needle. It is really exciting. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilgus. Councilor Groves.
Thank you, Chair. I want to add my voice to expressing my appreciation for Chief Skinner and the EPD for the work they've been doing. We're asking you to step into harm's way in a very volatile situation, and I think your officers have done a fabulous job. And I don't think they get the level of recognition I think they deserve. I'm out in the community all the time, and I hear a lot of support for our police department and our police officers and you. It's sometimes we get certain people that show up repeatedly at council meetings and, they have a different opinion, and I respect everyone's opinion, but you have to put that in perspective. That's 40 some odd people out of 180,000. Anyway, I just think there's been some real wisdom in what you've chosen to engage in and what you stayed out of. And I agree with the comments I heard down the line here that I especially appreciate job one of protecting people, regardless of who they are. And, it's one of the biggest responsibilities that we as a city have. And I appreciate that and would like a better way to thank your officers so that they know that people do support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Groves. Commissioner Lyman.
Thank you, Chair. I have no comments this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Neal.
Yeah, just one comment. I will have to leave at 7. I'm very sorry I have to leave a little early, but hopefully we're a little bit ahead, so hopefully we'll get through. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Bertrand.
That was perfect. That was perfect. Thank you, Commission. Unfortunately, I had some technical difficulties, had to move to a different device, so that's why you're not seeing me, at least virtually. But no other comments. Thank you again.
Thank you, Commissioner Bertrand. Comments. Thank you for all showing up and doing this work. I was reading an NPR article regarding an Illinois Accountability Commission. So after Surge and Ice presence in Chicago last year, they created this accountability commission to collect evidence from citizens about ICE actions, including the agency's leadership, and to make accountability recommendations. And I was just thinking about Oregon is really great overall in being a sanctuary state and Eugene being a sanctuary city. And I don't know if this is the platform for that, but the accountability piece seems really big. And I just thank EPD for doing the work that they do, and the protesters for speaking their truths, and everybody doing their part to help get through all of this. That's it. That's all I got. Thank you. Okay. Next, Chief's report.
Thanks, Chair. Well, if I knew it was gonna be like this, we'd have this meeting every week. But I appreciate the comments, and I do think that as with everything, when I speak to in public, which I do quite often, I would suggest to you that as much as I appreciate in this venue hearing the support, that make sure that when you're out in the community, that when you find an officer or find somebody that doesn't have brass on their collar, and thank God, because they're the ones doing the tough work. It's relatively easy for me to sit here in the command post with drones up and to make decisions, policy level decisions, but it's another thing that those folks are the ones that have to deliver on those policy decisions in the field. And they have to do a lot of really good decision making, and have a lot of restraint. in the field. It's easy to have restraints sitting in the comfort of this room, making those decisions. It's a different thing. Being on the line, knowing that you're there to try and make sure that you avoid a violent confrontation between our public and federal officials, and to be have stuff thrown at you and be told to resign your position and all of the things that they hear. It's another thing to have the restraint on that line. And what you saw that night was the men and women of that particular team showing great restraint and standing with strong resolve as they took that abuse when they were there for the right reasons. So thank you for that, but just make sure that we funnel and focus that appreciation to the right place as we think about this. Couple other thoughts on that, and I'll make my comments brief so we can get Commissioner Neal out of here so he can weigh in on some stuff. I think you can expect to see in the not so distant future some fencing that will go up downtown. I'm helping to facilitate. Now understand, Federal Protection Services, FPS, is the lion's share of the staff that's down there. FPS is not, they're not ICE agents. They are federal agents under DHS, Department of Homeland Security, but they're Federal Protection Services, FPS, and their whole mission is just to protect federal property. They are law enforcement officials. They do have federal arrest authority, but they're designed to protect federal property. They don't engage in enforcement action outside of things that are involved in the protection of the property. But we are facilitating the arrival of some fencing that will go up there. And part of that was as a result of our interaction with them and helping to better articulate kind of the spaces where the protesting can and should occur, and kind of what is that line that if you cross, you know that you're likely going to be met with a fairly resistive outcome. And so if you choose to do that, that's a personal choice, but it really is in that courtyard area of that federal building. It really is kind of a moving target, so to speak. And so what this will do is we'll clearly outline where people can be to peacefully protest, and likely 99% of the people that are going to be down there will understand where they can be, and then the few that choose to press the issue, that will be real obvious who those folks are, and then there'll be likely some outcomes as a result of that. But I think that will be healthy for us to see kind of where that should be. So that's going to be showing up pretty soon, and we're helping in the sense of they're going to need to close down a couple of streets to deliver the fencing, and so we're helping with that. And I say we, the city, by issuing permits, we often close streets down for a variety of different things to help facilitate that. And so we'll likely be doing that in the coming week or weeks to be able to do that. I know that we have a number of federal agents down there as a result of the January 30th incident if I remember correctly, on a 20-day ish tour of duty just to help do that. What we've seen is we've seen a variety of protests that have been occurring down there that have been not only manageable, but equally peaceful. And so I think I feel like we're in a good rhythm right now. Having said that, I'm not asking for people to challenge that, but we're in a good rhythm. Like many of you have seen over the years, is that this is not new to us. We as a police department feel like we have a pretty good approach to this and understand the nuances and make good decisions around peaceful protests and how to help facilitate that and keep people safe at that time. And so we'll continue to do that as we move forward. And so I like where we're at. I don't like where we're at with staffing. We continue to struggle with staffing, but we're working on that, and specifically staffing on teams that have the experience and the training around crowd management is really important for us, because that is a fairly unique nuance. You don't just take your brand new baby cops and put them online and say, figure it out. You want to be trained and measured in how you respond, and it takes a special person to be able to do that work. And so we're working on how we staff those folks up so we have that. We were really pleased that evening with our partnership with Springfield PD. They sent some resources over and they worked underneath our supervision. And because we co-train with them, everybody speaks the same language when it comes to that. And so it was very seamless that on that line, it was not only Eugene PD, but it was Springfield PD as well. And they equally were measured and tempered in their approach. And so I appreciate the partnership with Chief Resch and being able to help not only handle calls for service, but provide some bodies when it came to that. So on a different note, I will say that it's not necessarily for prime time. I know we have media in the audience, so you have to wait until Monday for the full report, but 2025 crime numbers are out. Council has been afforded a sneak peek to that. What I will tell you is that in several categories, we have between a 4 and 10-year low in our crime numbers. And so I really like the trends that we're going. Proactivity has gone up, calls for service have gone down. We've made some significant improvement in some key areas. And so without ruining the surprise, I just wanted to give you a heads up that you'll be seeing that this next week. And I think it's a indicator, not the indicator, but a indicator of a sense of safety in this community when we were able to look at our what does crime look like in our community and what are we seeing around that. And so I'm very, very hopeful. And we have both numbers that will share citywide numbers, and we have numbers that will share specific to the downtown core. And so that'll be coming out on Monday probably, and I'll be hosting likely some Q&A stuff with our media partners around that, because we have for 2026 also set. We will be setting crime reduction goal, and this year we were going to have 2 crime reduction goals. One is a crime reduction goal, the other one is more of a educational goal. I will tell you that one of those is going to be around traffic safety and enforcement. So more to come on that, but I'm excited about the department and what they were able to accomplish after we set the crime reduction goal in 2024 or 2025. It's probably not a shock to you that still our #1 call for service citywide is criminal trespass by a wide margin, Other cities our size and other cities I've been a part of, that call for service has always been theft. And every other jurisdiction I've been a part of, theft is kind of wins the day. In our community, criminal trespass wins the day. So don't be surprised if there isn't some emphasis around how we continue to empower our private property owners to get a little bit of remedy around some trespassing that is occurring in and around the city. So with that, I'm going to stop there, and happy to answer any questions you might have. And certainly I'm available anytime if you have questions that you don't get to hearing this.
Thank you, Chief. I have a question, if nobody else has a question first. All right. So can you define, I was going to look in the policy, but I got lazy, I'll be honest. I watched your statement when stuff was going on and the riot was declared, and I was hoping you could help define when it goes from to riot status. Like, what is that marker that then makes it riotous? Am I articulating? Does that?
I know exactly where you're going with this.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So I think that the biggest thing for me, and again, I was having this really good conversation with Commissioner Rady earlier. All of the decisions that we make, whether it's police or fire, quite honestly, are generally predicated on whatever intelligence we're getting. And we have to hope that the intelligence that we're getting is good intelligence. Now, there's been instances where in hindsight, it's not as good as we had hoped, or it was shared differently, but that happens every single day in our world. Every call for service we get is our response is predicated that we're getting good information from people who are calling and or people that are observing what's going on out in the community. And most of the time they get it right. And every once in a while it is either embellished or downplayed or just flat wrong. And so in this particular case, Chair, one of the things, I think the biggest indicator for me around moving a protest, even a loud and very assertive protest to that riotous status would be when we start to see the infusion of criminal behavior. And so that's the big one for me. And so in that particular case, and we can debate we can debate the question of the breaking of the windows if we want to, but the minute we start seeing criminal behavior occurring, that's when it becomes, in my mind, riotous behavior.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I was wondering if there's like property damage, if that was a key point. So thank you for that explanation. That helps a lot. I appreciate it. All right. Well, thank you, Chief. Are there any questions, any other questions for the chief at this time? All right.
You
Well,
really
let's-
like that. No question.
Hush tones. How about we jump into some policy, y'all? Sexual assault 3.4. This was brought about actually by a citizen, which is pretty great. We got some feedback at our last year as to this specific policy and looking into it. So we are going to look at that. Do I have a motion to open up the discussion for this policy?
Need a motion. No motion is needed.
Thank you, Commissioner Rady. All right, well, let's jump into it. Sergeant Jordan, do you want to discuss, or do you want to just open it up for commissioners to ask questions? What would you like?
Yeah, I can say a few words. So obviously this is coming back from last meeting. So we had a couple folks from the public who obviously had some expertise in the matter. And so with their input and our detectives and violent crimes unit, you'll see some red line stuff, just little things throughout the policy, cleaning it up, but the main things that changed was we went back to the 120 hours for the safe kit exam. Because that was what we should be doing, and I mean, it's what we are doing at this point, so that's good. The other thing was that discussion, I don't know if we all recall, about certified investigators, so or qualified investigators, and at this point, because none of our investigators have specific certifications, they are all very well trained. They all have a variety of training, which I think we touched on this. That's what kind of makes them stand and kind of be better as a whole unit of investigators, because not each person is created the same, and as such, they bring different things to different investigations. They work together. There's a lot of overlap. So for that, it was mentioned that the word qualified insinuates some sort of certification or qualification, and there truly is none. So we took that word out, but I have confirmed with our violent crimes unit that all investigators are going to be able to go to FETI, which was that forensic exam technique training for interviews. And they all utilize those principles, and that's why we also took out the list, not in this version, but that previous version. We took out the list of all of the specific questions, because that's not going to be helpful. It's too confining. And so we want them to work off of principles, not exact roadmaps. So happy for any feedback at this point. Those are the things that changed. Yeah.
I have a question. When I was reading over this, I wasn't here last year, but what was very evident that was absent from this is that you don't have, there's an absence of a trauma support person that's called in for them. Are you
Okay.
are
I
you
think in
aware of the
here,
trauma intervention program that we have here in town?
yeah, we actually utilize TIP quite a
Oh,
bit.
okay, because we're available
Yeah.
24/7, and that's trauma is how we're engaged with people, and that's kind of, I mean, we show up with a resource guide. We'll stay 12 hours, 24, it doesn't matter how long we're gonna stay. People that I work with are just really willing to come in, and
Yeah.
it seems like somebody who's in that situation, you can kind of hit and miss with who's ever taking their report.
Mhm.
And especially because there's a turnover happening, and I think we're up to 60 volunteers right now. And I think they're looking to add probably another class, but so there's a lot of us, and we'd be willing to come out.
Yeah.
I think one of the challenges, I mean, we brought Tip here. I remember myself and the sheriff talked about bringing TIP down after seeing it being really successful up in the Portland metro area. The foundational piece of the TIP program was around those families experiencing trauma when a death had occurred in the family and doing some of that stuff. One of the things we have to be sensitive to, while I do think there's some applicability, is getting you involved too soon to the point where you all start getting subpoenaed to come testify in court because you are taking statements from or hearing something that has strong evidentiary value. We want to protect the integrity of the program. The minute we start getting a bunch of volunteers subpoenaed for court to have to come and testify, always makes it really challenging for people that want to be a part of that. And so I think there's probably an application for TIP somewhere in there in the early stages of an investigation. I think that's probably our only, one of the only concerns that we would have is whether or not that there would be some disclosures made. And then, because I don't think you're considered confidential as a volunteer at the TIP program. I don't know if you're confidential.
When we're doing our classes, they make sure that everything that we do is really nebulous to somebody reading our reports or reading anything that we've done so that we don't get called in.
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
Right.
Obviously.
I'm just wondering, I mean, are the officers, are they told that they can call TIP when something like that, say after the initial interview is being taken? I'd hate for these people to go on without having any sort of help afterwards. Again, we're very good about getting them together with SAS as well.
Yeah, I think the officers know that TIP is available. I can't honestly tell you in the moment when they're just solely focused on an investigation that they remember all the time that resource is available. Quite honestly, from my perspective, you take a supervisor that's maybe showing up that can kind of be at that 10,000-foot view, could kind of be the one that would say, hey, is there another resource maybe we can call in if we see somebody that's really struggling or needs the extra support to be able to do that. So the answer is yes, and we're probably not as good at it as we would like to be.
I would like to add, if you don't mind.
Sure. No,
Okay.
sure.
If you look at 3.4.4B, it does talk about, that the victim should be advised that the assistance option is available and assisted when appropriate in contacting a support person. So I have to say, from a line level perspective, when I was taking these reports on the street myself, it was very frequent that I would encounter and help someone get a SAS support person, or through Cahoots when we had Cahoots, or through many other community resources. So I honestly feel like we're well supported and using those resources, and I think TIP's just another great one. So I just want to put that in there, but we also don't like to name specific resources because we know they're very they fluctuate and they're fleeting sometimes, and names change. So we like to just refer to it in that general sense of, yes, we will help you find a support person or call someone, that sort of thing. So, yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Lyman.
Thank you. Last month, there was some back and forth and a discussion about the certification and the idea that having an officer go in with the certification exposes them to a more robust cross-examination. And I just was appreciative of that point, but after the meeting, I was remiss in saying, like, it still totally makes sense. We heard from the public advocates last month about how that's kind of the gold standard of forensic interviewing tech, that they were advocating that all of our detectives get that training. And I left, and it suddenly occurred to me, well, yeah, they should get the training. They just shouldn't take the certification. I mean, and I think you said that's really kind of what's happening. I mean, the knowledge is good. It's just whether you label the officer. So that's all I wanted to say.
And I really appreciate that fact, because truly this policy or procedure doesn't just cover detectives doing this work, it covers officers. And so we as a department teach these trauma-informed and forensic approved kind of techniques for investigations, because we want it kind of uniformly done across the board. We don't want somebody to get, we don't want somebody to not have their case go forward because they weren't as
capable of taking this report and doing a good job on the front end, because we know that's what builds a better case as it goes upstairs to detectives. So, yes, I think we're on the same page there. So thank you.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions for you, Sergeant Jordan. The first one, well, I guess this is for you and Chief. With all the resources that officers out in the world have and whatnot, that's a lot to remember. Do they get like a little card or something that has all the varying resources within the community that an officer can just be, talking to a victim and saying, hey, so there are different resources if you want to pick and choose whatever's safest or whatever you're most comfortable with. So they don't have to remember it. So it is just sort of something they have with them to offer victims. Does
Yeah.
that exist?
Yeah, so we have a kind of blue book, which is kind of a little resource guide that officers get in. I don't know if we have printed copies now, but we definitely have a PDF copy that they can access on their phones and their computers. I mean, after a while, you do get really familiar with it, but that's half the battle, is knowing where to look for the resources and not memorizing all of them. And then also, I would say some of our community resources that we have are the ones that would help the person who is in need of the resources kind of deep dive and figure out which one's going to be a better fit for them. So we don't necessarily need to know, oh, this is the perfect one for you. We just know how to connect and get the wheels in motion on that.
That's amazing. And I'm glad to hear it's in PDF so they don't have to carry around a binder that has to be updated with pages. So that's rad. And I did misspeak. I apologize. I forgot that we looked at this last month. So, and this is a procedure. This is actually for staff to review if they need guidance as well as kind of policy related, correct? Okay. And then 3.4.9 polygraph examination of victims. Are polygraphs still very much a thing for a lot of crimes?
Not that but I think it's in here primarily because the ORS governs this, and we want to ensure that we are showing we're complying with that ORS state law and the US code. So.
Well, good job following rules. Okay, that's all I got. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Commissioner Wilgus.
There was one word in here that I just wondered we might change. It's under 3.4.5, letter G. In the last sentence before the list of 1 through 6, it says items to consider for collection include, and I wrestled with the word consider a bunch because it feels like you definitely want them to collect them if they're present and not consider collecting them.
Yeah.
Would we maybe just remove it and say items for collection if present include?
If present, so add those words in instead of
Maybe
consider.
so.
I think we can look at that and see how it goes with, yeah.
Any other questions, comments, concerns for Sergeant Jordan?
Chair John Bradley has his hand up.
Thank you so much. Vice Chair.
So I just wanted to make mention that, Chair said, that having a quick resource guide for officers, that's a really good idea. I'm glad that you all already have that, because in the moment, it is difficult to remember all that exists. And having QRGs, resource guides, that sort of thing, that's helpful. And if it's internal document that you're not able to share, I understand, but I'm interested in looking at it if it's okay.
I would have to check on that because it is, as far as I know, kind of an internal working document.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know, I'm looking at actually as patrol sergeant who does this work every single day. My guess is a lot of our resources we put on Smart Force, which is our SharePoint site that can be accessed anytime where we have web access. And so we're really trying to get to a place where we have a shared SharePoint site to be able to do that, and so it gets updated, and that some of those resources might be on there, Sean, is what I'm
Yep, that's right.
wondering, so, okay.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else?
I just want to add one more thing. I know the concern was ensuring that the folks that showed up at the last meeting had time to offer further comment and have that opportunity to do so in writing if they chose. And I was in contact via email with the help of Commissioner Rady to ensure that the things that were mentioned and addressed, that was kind of the bulk of it. So I had a chance to hear from them. I just wanted to share that in case.
They
you
did
were
get
wondering.
back in touch with you.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you for that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. All right. So let's vote. All in favor of moving forward with this policy, please raise your hand or say aye.
Question,
Oh, I apologize. Commissioner Rady and Commissioner Bertrand, I don't know if you were asking a question, but Commissioner Rady.
in terms of procedure, with the question of 3.4.5 G, the Commissioner Wilgus raised, how does that stand? Are you just gonna fix it and we can adopt the policy?
If you want to make a motion to adopt the policy with the amended changes and trust that we will do that
So moved.
to your liking, I think that probably is the best way to go forward.
Then discussion on that? Yes,
Commissioner Lyman.
thanks. So I'm looking at what Commissioner Wilgus is proposing. And then if you look at the way that the objects for collection are described, like look for items, consider cutting out, so it's almost like items. So the reason, if it's items for collection, if present, include, and then you go read the list, it seems to be a little bit of a disconnect. So the consideration is, because there seems to be some judgment in the list of 1 through 6. It's not get this item, the better, if there's this. So I'm just not sure. I'm not opposed to it. I'm just I'm noticing some conflict in the language of the list.
It's funny how it's written. Yeah. Okay,
It's items to consider for collection, but it's not a list of items that say.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
what I'm saying.
Or,
Yeah.
Maybe
that just.
items for consideration include, as in items on a list, and these are the things to consider doing, because one is photographing, one is
Right.
collecting bedding, one is cutting out relevant areas. I don't know. I mean, none of this would change substantively, so if anybody, I mean, if everybody's okay with it, I can play with that wording, but just make sure that it substantively doesn't change. And make it make sense.
That makes sense.
It's, yeah,
Because there is no substantial, this difference here, it's just language.
yeah.
right.
Grammar.
Yeah, I don't think any of the discussion we're having or the improvements to the policy that are being suggested would change the outcome of the investigation. Because of this, how we train. So if you're comfortable with Allison's ability to get us to yes on this, then I think she'll find some good wording for it.
And living
Well-
document. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, it almost seems like, rather than items, like we we're saying, just steps to consider in the investigation. Just keep it simple.
Did you get all the Alice Sergeant Jordan?
Do I what?
Our laundry list? Did you get our laundry list of requests from you? I'm just kidding. I was trying to be funny.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So with those changes that Sergeant Jordan will be making for us, do we want to move forward with the policy with those changes? And if so, Commissioner Bertrand, did you have a question?
No, I did not. It was just
Okay.
in regards to voting.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Okay, so moving forward, all in favor to move forward with the policy with those amended changes that Sergeant Jordan will be making. Please raise your hand or say aye. Aye. There we go. My screen got really tiny, so I need your help here today. Do we have a unanimous vote?
Yep.
Oh, wonderful. Delightful. Thank you, thank you. All right, moving on to the next policy. Oh, okay. So, 11.24 acute stress adaptive protocol, or ASAP. Sergeant Jordan, did you want to speak to this, or should we just jump in with questions, comments?
I would love to start us out by having our three guests who are our subject matter experts come on up and have a seat. And I will introduce them and then give you a little brief overview, and then you get to ask all the questions you'd like.
Wonderful, thank you.
No handles on those chairs, so we dealt with it.
All right. So, some of you met these fine folks earlier at our wellness center tour, but I will do a proper introduction, just those of you who weren't there. So first up, we have Sergeant Sean McCauley. He is currently in the patrol division as a supervisor sergeant, and he's also the co-supervisor of our PSRT team. So really involved in our wellness program. Personally, I have to mention that he is a very proud family man who has a wife and 2 kids, and he also came to us from Douglas County. He started there in 2014, and he was CIT trained and a crisis negotiator while he was there. Yep. And then he came to EPD in 2020, where he is also a crisis negotiator trained, and was on PSRT, as well as now he's the co-supervisor. He also has a certification for peer supporter in individual and group settings. He's been a sergeant here since 2023, and he kind of keeps us up to date where we need to be on a lot of trainings and this kind of, the front edge of the technology in this realm, because we know officer wellness hasn't always been the focus. And so we're kind of with the changing tides here, luckily. Next up is Emily McCauley. She is our comm center supervisor for training. She's also currently the AIC 911 operations manager. So she's got a lot on her plate. I don't know how she finds enough time in the day. She's been with EPD for 22 years, which is not a small thing. She's been a supervisor for 11 of those, and she has been on the PSRT team since 2009. She has been supervising that team since 2015, and she is also certified in group and individual critical incident stress management. She obviously has a very deep passion for officer and department wellness, because she's actually not only been instrumental in our development of programming for that, but also has helped many other agencies in the state starting their peer support teams and wellness programs. So I think that's pretty cool. All right, and then last up, but not the least, is Katie Ainsley Wallace. She is she's got a lot of letters behind her name, but as I know her, she is our QMHP. She's a licensed professional counselor, and she is part of our wellness program. She is contracted to provide services to our officers here as needed, and it's kind of cool. She gets to have an office here and offsite. So but I'll let her talk more about that. She was a teacher before she did this work, and I guess entered the mental health field in 2017, and she started working with first responders in 2021. So she's been with us since September of 2025, and she's also apparently wants to do a lot of work too, because she's getting her PhD in psychology right now, clinical psychology. So I think that's everything. So thank you all for being here. I don't know, I'm gonna say that they all worked on this procedure and made it happen and we just kind of got it here. So I might just let you all start with questions maybe. Or why don't you talk about what this is? Why don't you guys
Okay,
talk about it?
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
It's just awkward to finish.
I appreciate it. Counselor, commissioners, thanks for having us. Fortunate, unfortunate for me, I thought I could show my 8-year-old how to do a handstand. That ended up with me blowing out my shoulder. So that provided the opportunity to sit down and write 1125, which is CES, cranial electrotherapy stimulation, alpha stem, and then the other one that we're going to talk about, acute stress adaptive protocol. With CES, I worked with very closely, obviously, with Emily. Oh, just kidding.
Sorry. Yep, sorry. We're starting with 1154.
Rewind. ASAP.
Yeah.
I mean, both of them are very similar. They're things that our team is providing to the department as ways to reduce stress due to their job. And the peer support resiliency team is pervasive throughout the entire department at dispatch, records, our evidence control unit. We're spread all throughout. So with this acute stress adaptive protocol, what we're doing, and Katie can speak much more to the science behind it, but what we have is several members of our peer support team who are certified as peer support counselors on our team, and they're specifically trained in acute stress adaptive protocol, or ASAP. And that is an EMDR-based intervention specifically for law enforcement. And what we would basically do is have members who want to participate show up at a location. We would have our ASAP trained team members run them through the ASAP protocol, which Katie can go through. And the great thing about it is you can bring anything to this program. It doesn't matter if it's external stressors from home, if it's work-related stuff, because you don't say a word. That's what's so phenomenal about it. You sit in this room, you go through this process, and you work through whatever you need to work through. So consistently in anything that we do in peer support, confidentiality is paramount. So to be able to go to a room and have a licensed professional and trained peer support people that you work with your peers and work through whatever it is that you need to work through is phenomenal. So the ASAP procedure just kind of lines out how we do that. Any specific questions thus far?
Sounds great.
These are very clinical, I would say. They're very step by step. So Katie, would you be willing to just kind of speak to the process or the EMDR base of it? Because I know we have people who know.
So it's not EMDR, so nobody's going through trauma processing, so to speak, but they are almost, sometimes I call it dipping your toe into EMDR. So the way that it's set up, they go through different stages. The first 3 stages are more skills based. So the first one is like doing a mindfulness practice, right? Can you regulate your body? And then you move into the next one is, can you think of a time when you felt calm, peaceful, in control? It could be a place that you've been to before. So it's a calm place that's typically used in EMDR as a way of like regulating. And then you move into, in relation to this event, how would you prefer to feel or how would you prefer to think? And so it has a lot of the processes that are used in EMDR, but it's very brief. And so the first half is really making that stronger. It uses bilateral movement. So we have people tapping or on their knees, whatever way they want to use bilateral stimulation or BLS. And then it brings up, okay, so the event that you want to work on, what is the worst part of it for you as you think about it now? And then it's really brief. So you just think about it for the 3 sets of bilateral movement, and then we're moving on. And that next step is zooming out. So if you take a step back and you look at this from a distance and notice what you and other people do, right? So you're giving yourself that stepping out, because we tend to get stuck in our trauma or whatever might be upsetting us. Real quick, we're not staying there very long, and then you're moving on to the last one. Throughout, people are recording, or when I do it individually, one-on-one, I'll say on a scale of 0 to 10, what would you rate your level of distress right now? And that last one, you're asking throughout, I'm trying to give a very brief explanation. That last one is, okay, the last number that you recorded, why is it that number? And then we close it out with using a container exercise. So when you, whatever's left that still might be bothering you, we're gonna have you set it aside, not shove it down deep, but put it somewhere for a little while. And when you want to bring it back out, you can. And then I missed a couple steps. Also checking in on whether that more adaptive belief fits. And then we close it out. Sometimes you do another regulating exercise if people need it. And then that's it. It's 25-30 minutes. So I want to be clear, this is not EMDR. If they want to do EMDR, they can do it with the EMDR trained clinician, which I do. Yes.
What's EMDR?
Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So it's a trauma therapy modality that is evidence-based trauma treatment that was developed by Francine Shapiro in the late 80s. And it's used as a way to process events that have happened. I don't know how much deeper you want me to get into that.
So you don't get answers, you're just leading this exercise, but the officer is not responding
I'm
verbally.
not sharing anything.
Yeah,
Okay.
correct. So the peer counselors that are guiding it are giving prompts throughout for them to do it. That's why it can be done in an individual setting or a group setting, which is great. And we've done some of those drop-in group settings because no one is actually speaking. If it's done in a clinical setting, like Katie's describing, there would be talk therapy, there would be back and forth conversation that was occurring between the person that's receiving it and the clinician. And because that's not the case, that also feeds into the extra confidentiality because they're not actually sharing what they're working on, and then allows it to be done in a group setting.
Just for clarification, is this something that is being required of them to attend, or this is totally elective?
It's elective, like all of the peer support resources and support in our department are elective.
And this usually happens after a critical incident?
Yeah, and it can happen, it can happen following a critical incident. Our trained counselors have offered that, hey, you might benefit from this, when they've counseled someone after a critical incident. But we're also starting to offer drop-in sessions. We're having these drop-in sessions at this time, come and you can work on whatever you choose to work on. So it can be work related, it can be personal related, it can be from 20 years ago, it can be from 2 days ago.
Can I ask?
Go ahead, Chair.
So if you have individuals, and it sounds like a lot of the recruiting and a lot of what I've heard of, a lot of the officers are very self-aware, which is an amazing skill set to have and wonderful on police department as a whole. But if you're noticing folks who are maybe experiencing some trauma and maybe they can't necessarily see those impacts themselves, do you strongly encourage them to seek resources, or how does that work for you all?
So there's a couple different ways that would occur. One would be if they've sought out peer support and they are talking to a peer counselor, and they see behaviors or signs that they think that they would benefit from either regular talk therapy from a therapist, some type of other medical or clinician intervention, or ASAP or Alpha STEM or something like that. They are going to strongly encourage that and say, we have this available, I think you would benefit from this, and make that available to them. The other way that those kind of come to us are people in the department saying, hey, I've noticed this about so-and-so, we're concerned, we want you to check on them. Those come through Sean and I as the leadership on the team, and then we pick a peer counselor that would be appropriate based on their relationships, based on the fact that they're a team member, based on the fact that they're a friend, or whatever it is. We pick the person that is perfect for that, ask them to do the check-in, and they'll check on the person, and again, then engage in that referral process. Ultimately, peer support resources are always elective, but generally with the culture in our department and the work that our team's done over the last 10 to 15 years, generally at some point, people usually engage with our team and do kind of take those referrals. If you're talking about forcing people to do types of things, that's in Fitness for Duty, and that's separate from peer support. That's done through Command and our Employee Resource Center, which is our HR, if it's at a Fitness for Duty type thing.
That was a wonderful explanation. Thank you. And I'm glad to hear that the culture is supported to support each other and take care of themselves. That's awesome.
So I know Fitness for Duty is in another policy and procedure here, but one of the biggest barriers to care for law enforcement officers and for active duty service members is the concern around fitness for duty when engaging care, at least in the initial stages. What is the department, what do you all do to help mitigate those concerns, fears?
For me, I've made it very clear, I don't do fitness for duty. My job is to, well, in essence, serve and protect them and their mental health. So I try to make that incredibly clear.
If there's a department member that's going through a Fitness for Duty, which aren't common, but if that process is engaged, that's an external evaluator that's not intermixed with peer support or the role that Katie's in. So that wouldn't be someone internally here that was doing that. It would be an external person that does that. All of the referrals that we have, internal and external to the department, have a level of confidentiality. So our peer support team has an organized statute that protects the counseling that we do around that. Katie obviously has those confidentiality protections. We have an employee assistance program with the city that they can utilize that is confidential and free to them. So if they utilize employee assistance, those do go back to the city for billing purposes, but it's just this many police department employees sought counseling in January for these general things, for marriage counseling, for critical incidents or whatever. So there's no identifying things attached to them. So those are parts of that's education that our team is providing to employees as we're making these referrals. Hey, these are the options for you, and these are what they look like. And so even as you'll see the process of the Alpha STEM, when we talk about it, there's an anonymous way for them to access those and check those out and things like that. So just trying to make it the least amount of barriers for people to get the resource with the most amount of confidentiality.
Thank you. I think that's a great posture. Also, I want to affirm the sergeants for the strengths-based language in the policy, and that emphasizes wellness and also reduces stigma. And so it's very well written. Thank you all for this strong work.
Commissioner Lyman.
Thank you. It may be a little off topic, but we're brushing against it, and it definitely is occurring to me. So I'll ask, what is the policy? Are individual officers under any obligation if they have fitness for duty concerns about a fellow employee? Is there any affirmative obligation to come forward with those? Akin to mandatory reporter or, a bar member having to, to report, so is that an issue?
Well, from the peer supporter lens, statute and now a House bill that was just enacted and went live as of the first of this year, our confidentiality ends if someone says something about self-harm, harming someone else, or committing a crime, or any mandatory reporting requirements such as domestic violence type stuff. So, and we make that very apparent when we talk to someone. One of the unique positions that Emily and I are in, and our team also goes even further up the chain of command to lieutenant and above and captain. We have to put the extra caveat of we are supervisors, and even though we're acting in this peer support role, and these are the guidelines, we also have our boss hat on. So if you were to disclose something surrounding workplace harassment or sexual harassment, something of that nature, we would become mandatory reporters in that administrative process. So I don't know if I'm directly answering your question.
My question is kind of specific. If an officer believes that fellow officer is not fit for duty or temporarily unfit or whatever, is there an affirmative obligation under any policy in the city's policies, the EPD policies, where that officer is obliged to report to a supervisor or to someone that I have concerns about the fitness of X or Y for duty?
I'm digging into, we have policy 103, which is standards, duties and conduct, and it covers pretty much everything related to that. I'm trying to find the specific language related to that. My gut says there is, especially if you're aware of
Like some kind of criminal activity?
Well, there's also like it's probably buried in different policies because there's also the APM, which is the administrative prep for all of City of Eugene. And there, for example, they have a like on duty drug use policy. That's not the title of it. It's something much
Right.
better than that. But essentially that requires like the report of like if there was substance abuse, right? That's one reason why someone would not be fit for duty. And then in standard duty and conduct, there's other things. So there's not like one policy that I know of that's like, hey, if that you don't think they're fit, but it's buried, whether it's substance abuse, whether it's mental health, whether it's other things, you know, that they have to report, but there is less for line level than there is for supervision, that they have an additional obligation to act and to intervene above a line level.
So for the peer support, if it's a line, if it's not a supervisor, but they learn in the course, they don't learn anything from this particular thing because they're only leading an exercise,
Sure.
but if they develop the sense of a fitness issue, is that something that they're supposed to raise, or it's up against
It
the
depends on the,
confidentiality?
it depends on the scenario. Generally, how those have come to me as a supervisor is there's a lot of questions that come to me, and I think probably Sean too, where they're not revealing necessarily the details or the person's identity, but they're saying, what is a resource that we would have in this scenario? Or what would you suggest if someone is experiencing this, or I need help going beyond for up the chain of command or externally, or what do we do with this? So we get a lot of those where it comes to us in a filter, right? Because, you know, saying, kind of keeping that confidentiality, and where do you send me? And is it to employee resource center, to HR? Is it to a workers' comp? Is it to filing a psychological injury? Those types of things. So trying to keep, you know, what is the funnel? And a lot of those, the fitness for duties, a lot of times are physical, not mental health related. After someone's had a physical injury, sometimes they do involve mental health, but we've had a lot of successful cases where people have filed psychological injuries as a workers' comp claim because they have continued symptoms weeks down the road, months down the road. And then basically that was covered by the department as a workers' comp claim. So the counseling and the things that they had to go to related to that were kind of covered. So we've been successful in kind of navigating people through those processes. But every situation is so unique that it is hard. Our peer counselors are pretty good at kind of gauging, generally the people they're interacting with are people that they work with every day, that they know well, that they're friends with. So they kind of know their baseline and then kind of know where to navigate through that. But I mean, we've had peer counselors that have checked people into rehab facilities. We've had peer counselors that have intervened with people that were suicidal and got them to help and things like that successfully. They went on to have, you know, to have careers here. So there are interventions that are happening through our team and through other resources in the department that are setting people onto a better path.
Thank you.
It's good news.
Counselor Gross, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I really appreciate this, and I'm just really impressed how far this has come. And I think back to my fire service career, it was always lock it in a box. And it always manifests itself somewhere else. So it's good that you're doing this, and I'm thrilled to hear that the workforce is receptive to it. And I remember when we started bringing in peer counseling in fire, that was received better than the contract program we used. But it was really hard to get people to feel safe in that space.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, my hat's off to you. This is good. Taking care of our people is one of the most important responsibilities we have as an organization.
Yeah. Agreed. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. So, policy. Do we want to jump into it? Any questions, comments, concerns regarding the policy?
Do we need to vote can I move to approve this procedure 11.24?
All right. Do we have perfect. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Wilgus.
Oh.
Keeping me on track. All right, so thank you. Are we opening it up for more discussion specifically to the policy at this point before we vote?
Seeing no hands.
Oh, well, shucks. I have to say, you all have done a very good job in explaining it very well. So thank you for being here and talking with us. Okay, so let's jump into voting. All in favor to, what? Pardon me. Yes, Commissioner Wilkes.
Thank you. No, you're doing exactly what I was going to suggest.
Okay, so moving forward, all in favor of moving forward with this policy, please raise your hand or say aye. It looks to be unanimous. Thank you. That has passed. And now we will jump into 11.25, cranial electrotherapy stimulation.
That's
30. Are you ready, Sergeant McCulley?
It is.
Should have come to the tour. You could have tested it
I'm
out.
sorry. I was just
No,
back in
kidding.
meetings.
I think that Sergeant McCauley is going to be so good at telling you about this policy or this procedure. So.
Thank you. I'll try my best. Yeah, I was so excited. I tried to start with this one. So like ASAP, like the wellness room, thank you for those of you that were able to attend that. Our door's always open. Let me know. Always happy to show you anything like that. So this procedure is titled cranial electrotherapy simulation, or CES for short. That's like the big fancy term. We're talking specifically about the AlphaStim CES device, which I went to the Eugene Police Foundation and requested funding. I talked too much. I only had 3 minutes to try and discuss what it was. And they got us 5. So we're kicking off this program, which this procedure outlines how we check it out and how it's overseen, as another one of our resources that the peer support resiliency team provides to our department. Thank you for your earlier comments. I appreciate that. Emily has done so much. I can't even begin to talk about the number of things she's done for this department. When I think of my previous agency to coming here, the things that I received from the peer support resiliency team as someone taking on those resources, being a part of the team, and then moving forward to supervising the team with Emily, it's incredible. We talk often about having a culture of wellness. That can maybe be triggering to some people, but I truly believe it has to be a culture of wellness, because in this profession, it's not always been the thing. So I thank Emily a lot for everything that she did and allowing me to talk a lot and assist with things like this. So CES, AlphaStim, we have 5 devices. AlphaStim is a medical device. So because it's a medical device, it has to be overseen by a qualified person. And our more than qualified person is Katie Ainsley Wallace. So essentially what happens is someone will say, hey, they've attended an in-service training, or they've talked to Katie individually or to one of our peer support members and say, hey, what's this AlphaStim electric thing I put on my earlobes? And one of our members and Katie will explain what the device is, what the contraindications are, what the precautions are. We'll ensure that they've reviewed this procedure. And then ultimately, Katie will be the one to prescribe it to them. And it's kept in a secure safe up in the wellness room in the corner there. I don't know if you saw it when you were up there. They would use a code provided by Katie that's consistently changed. They'd access this device, and then for this procedure, they can keep it for up to 4 weeks. And that's based on a lot of the literature that says you want to use it daily for up to 4 weeks, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And then after that point, they would return it. The checkout process is randomized. Katie assigns randomized numbers. All the consent forms live with her in her office and have that patient-client confidentiality, so we don't know who's accessing it. We're just providing it through Katie. I have one other important point I wanted to make, but Katie, maybe you can talk about some of the things that AlphaStim actually does.
It's hard to describe it very quickly. It is a medical device. It has little clips to your ears, and what it does is induces a feeling of peaceful calmness. It helps with anxiety and insomnia. So sleep issues are prevalent in first responder culture. Sorry, I'm tripping over my words because there's a lot of them trying to come out at once. So this is a device that's very passive. So they can start it up about 20 to 60 minutes, depending on what level they're able to tolerate. Tolerate's probably too strong of a word. And hopefully they're doing something that's relaxing. After the 20 to 60 minutes is up, they're done. If they use it daily or at least consistently, it has cumulative effects. About 4 weeks from what studies have shown is they reach the level that is treatment. And then after that, it's just as needed. So they can check these out up to 4 weeks. And I totally lost my train of thought.
I'm right there with you. I remembered what I was gonna say, so perfect timing.
Oh, good.
When we talk about rolling this out to the department, a big part of it's education. And Katie, myself, and our distributor, Allevia Health, which is based out of Lebanon, and they cover the state of Oregon, the state of Washington, and work closely with the VA also specific to this device. We invited Jay Halai is his name, to come and present to each of our in-services. So we just finished our 4th. And I was so taken back, I just assumed, I know a lot about this because I had a broken wing for 2 months and did nothing but learn about AlphaStim. I can't really describe this to someone in an hour at in-service training, but to see the number of people in this department all across experience levels, personality levels, trying it, just at least trying it, I never thought I'd see that. So going back to what Commissioner Rady was saying, it's not, oh, I'm embarrassed, or this is something that's like woo-woo, or whatever vernacular you want to tie to it. They seem very excited, and to see the buy-in from the department investing in their wellness is incredible. It's what we as a team and as a department are building towards, taking care of people. So this is just one of those tools. Any questions, or do you remember what you were going to say?
Yeah.
Perfect.
So when you think about cumulative stress, oftentimes people's systems get stuck in fight or flight, and with the level of chronic stress that they're experiencing, this can be a way to help alleviate some of that. So it helps put you into more of a sympathetic system. And then the other thing is, I'm hoping this is going to be a preventive. So rather than them waiting, because most of the time when first responders come to me, it's way too late, right? Like their bag has gotten filled with rocks and it's really hard to drag around at that point. So I'm really hoping this is a preventative, even if people are like, I think I'm fine. Oftentimes they think they're fine because they're really good at shoving it down and carrying the weight and the burden. And they don't want to burden anyone else. So this, I'm hoping, is preventative. We got 156 people signed up and trained to be able to use this. I've got a lot of people reaching out, so I'm hoping we'll get more devices. And if people wanted to purchase them as well, it is covered by a health savings account. So I think that was all I wanted to add.
So when you reach your desired level, let's say 4 weeks, I imagine that diminishes over time, or is it just getting you to the point where you're clear and you're moving forward?
So Jay did a great job and shows a lot of third-party studies and double-blind studies, which are the gold standard, right? And what happens in one study in particular that stands out to me is there's an initial drop within the first 4 weeks, And then there's a little bit more. So if they continue past 4 weeks, they'll get a little bit more benefit. And then they stopped at 12 weeks. And then 12 weeks later, they assessed them again. There was very little change. So it went down and it stayed down even after, and these weren't necessarily first responders. So I think with first responders, it's just going to be ongoing because they get down here and then, oh, this happens and this happens, and they basically fill the bag back up, right? So the great results. I've had detectives working internet crimes against children with pretty terrible nightmares, significantly decreased. They were getting better sleep. People with oftentimes who get stressed and we kind of take it home, and sometimes we'll take it out on other people, being irritable or cranky or a little short. I have a lot of people who report that they have a lot more patience at home, a lot more patience at work. And so I think the device could really do wonders. I mean, I've had nothing but good feedback from my clients.
And another point, I understand not wanting to burden other people, but at least in fire, it was a lot. I don't want to show weakness.
You know,
If I ask for help, I'm weak.
Is there a downside to this device or what? I'm sitting here thinking, why wouldn't I go and get online and buy it?
I want to sleep.
Very limited side effects. Probably the most common is dizziness, but that's because they have it too high. If you feel dizzy, you turn it down. Sometimes people can get a tension headache because oftentimes we hold stress and it increases the blood flow. So the microelectric currents go right across however electrical pathways go. And so all of a sudden your shoulders relax, you're going to get a tension headache because oftentimes it's uneven. Those typically go away pretty quickly. Those were the main ones. There's not many.
Yeah, there's only one contraindication. So anyone who has an implanted pacemaker or an implanted or wearable defibrillator, so something that's another durable electric device, that's contraindicated. Using it during pregnancy isn't contraindicated, but it's a precaution just because it hasn't been studied. And any side effects that are reported are less than 1%, and they're like limited, mild. So like you said, dizziness, headache, skin irritation where the electrode are touching your ear. That's about it.
And that's usually because they're overdoing it, because sometimes people like to go all the way up.
One was good.
Little
Five.
Like
11.
Not really the big 10.
Yeah.
Can I jump the queue just to say, because I apologize actually, but I'm super supportive of this kind of technology being used in the department, especially research-based and clinically based. And so thank you for bringing it to your peers and colleagues. I won't be able to vote, but I would vote in favor of the policy. So thanks for.
Thank you.
Good luck with your leg there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, hopefully next time I won't be on crutches.
Thank you, Commissioner Neal. Do we have any other comments, questions, concerns? Commissioner Rady?
Yeah. As I have mentioned before in these meetings, my wife has 18 years in drug and alcohol counseling. And I often run these policies by her to see if she knows something I don't. And often she does, naturally. And she noted in 1125 2A number 1, with no risk of addiction. She said, anything that will change your emotional state as a risk of addiction, whether it is chemical, electronic, or otherwise. That's a misunderstanding of the addiction process. I can't imagine that there's a lot of people we find on the streets with these things hooked to their ears. But I'm not sure that is an accurate, I don't know, this is not my field, but she was pretty strong on it, that no, that's not how addiction works.
So it doesn't work with the reward system of the brain. So your reward system can't get addicted. Could people build a habit? Absolutely. Like we could build a habit to anything. How many people are drinking caffeine, right? Well, although that's we can build different habits, but addiction, because of the way that the waveforms go, it's so like a tens unit. If anyone's used a tens unit, the waveform is like consistent. It doesn't change. And the way that the Alpha STEM is it's constantly changing, so the pattern is bopping all over the place. And so when it talks about addiction, you can't get accustomed to it. So if we wanted to change the wording of addiction, we can.
I was just asking, I do not have a,
Yeah.
but she said, that's a misunderstanding.
People aren't gonna be jonesing for the devices to be plugged to their ears, so.
Yeah, I think the intention behind that, and if I can remember correctly, I took that directly from Alpha STEM, the company itself. I think that's when we talk in comparison to standard pharmaceutical interventions.
Yeah.
That,
But
as a layperson.
she pointed out to me that every single advance in the field was touted as non-addictive.
That's.
And every one of them.
Sure. I have no objection to removing that symbol.
Well, there is a difference of opinion that's pretty common in the field. There are those in addiction therapy who believe that you know, food and sex, for instance, are addictive properties, and it does work differently than, for instance, you know, than opiate or benzodiazepine use. And so dependence might be a word that could be replaced perhaps with addiction. And but I don't, my perspective is that it's not problematic. My thought on the Alpha STEM in general is that, you know, it's new enough that the meta-analyses are not prolific. We don't have you know, a whole host of scientific evidence that it's still kind of like in progress, if that makes sense. We have randomized controlled trials, and we have some meta-analyses, and some of them do show mixed results. However, the important thing to note, I think here for purpose of the policy and for the department, is that the risk of harm is so, it just doesn't really exist. And when we use it in my setting, you know, the most common like side effect is like dizziness or nausea that comes from dizziness. And so you just turn it off, and then, you know, the nausea kind of, you know, it dissipates. And then, you know, we coach people, well, at what level do you advise? Perhaps half it and then start over. And that's the advice that I got from my wife when she's a pain management clinician. And so that's when I got my Alpha STEM, and that's the advice that I got. And it kind of worked, but I felt nauseous, you know, the first couple of times I used it. My observation as a clinician and as someone who has chronic pain and the related mental health symptoms, you know, as a sequela to chronic pain, is that I think that after another 20 years or so, once we have settled science on alpha stimulation or the product itself, and I think what we might find is that you know, the act of taking that time every day and sitting down and intentionally spending that time on your wellness has some impact, whether or not you're have electrodes on your ears or not. That there is an impact for the, you know, just an emphasis, like we talked about before, on wellness and the device itself. It is, we have some moderate clinical evidence for anxiety, mixed evidence for depression, some evidence for insomnia, and we're still working, the body of scientific evidence is still working on pain management. The Alpha STEM devices that you will have, do you offer the electrodes for other body parts too, like if there's chronic pain?
We don't have the M model that you're speaking of, but if people are interested, I have one that a few people who were talking about having chronic pain, and I showed it to them.
Well, and the great advantage here is that even with the small number like 5 for the department, it gives someone who maybe has some of these limitations and gives them an opportunity to use the device and make a decision, without having to pay any money. As if it's, efficacious, I think. I haven't priced them out recently, but
800 for the model they use, 1,300 for the M model for the pain, because I just looked it up.
it's not in the line. Yeah.
There's
So it is
bulk pricing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The model that my employer buys for our consumers is more modest, I think, in price, but it's definitely, speaking to Commissioner Rady's question, any intervention that prolongs the time before opiates or benzodiazepines are used is really valuable. And if it can be avoided, if it can be avoided in general, so I don't care what the device does or is, if it's helping people avoid those real significant pitfalls that I know a lot of our law enforcement officers are falling into, because everyone is with benzodiazepines and with that's good news. So, and the policy looks good to me. My only thought, at some point in the future, there's going to be competitors for alpha stimulation, and so though we're talking about, they've kind of got a monopoly on the technology right now. The likelihood is that there will be competitors, and so at some point in time, it might be that we need to revert back to it in the language of the policy to, cranial stimulation, electric cranial stimulation, rather than not the alpha stim specifically, because it is proprietary. Thank you all.
Commissioner Rady.
Yeah, I was not trying to suggest that that was a bad thing necessarily, just that that was perhaps not an completely accurate statement. There are things you can be addicted to that are not that terribly harmful to you, but they're still, you become accustomed to them and dependent on them, and that can be anything. That can be going to church. I have one question and three little picky grammar points. The one question is, operation near a shortwave or microwave therapy medical equipment may produce instability. I believe there's a large radio transmitter in this building. Does that create any problems?
I don't believe we have one here.
No.
At the comm center, they have a repeater, right?
Yeah, there's no radio equipment here. All the radio equipment are either up on buildings, mountains, and there is some at the house at the comm center, yeah.
Microwaves are towers. There's one stuff in chambers, but
Yeah.
they're in the hills.
On the same, let's see, on 1125 2E, number 1, employees who use the device and experience serious reactions, product quality problems, or therapeutic inequivalence. What does therapeutic inequivalence mean?
Oh, I don't know. Did you pull that up by Alpha Stim?
Yeah, that's probably directly from Alpha Stim.
Yeah, but if no one knows what it means, well,
I think it's likely to mean not working as well as regular course of treatment, like antidepressants, pain medication.
it's just not working. It's not having the desired effect.
Yeah, so from other standard treatments. At least that's my reading of it.
And on 1125 5B4, the contracted qualified mental health professional will ensure that the EPD employees has meet the requirements under section blah, 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 as met, I suspect.
Yep,
Okay.
I
That's
appreciate it.
good.
And if I may, Commissioner Rady, going back to the conversation surrounding no risk of addiction, I'm perfectly fine removing that. And you bring up a great point. If you don't know it, why is it in there? Changing that to something that's more obvious, such as it's not working for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Excellent.
My only last thought on this is that I can't imagine that there are a whole lot of police departments in the nation that are, you know, offering out this films.
There are, yeah, I wrote this in concert with several programs that have been going for many years. The Portland Police Bureau has hundreds of these things.
Oh.
I think they have like 25 at each precinct or something to that effect. Albany PD, Benton County Sheriff's Office, Albany Fire,
Or
Ben
Val's
PD, Springfield PD. Oh, TVFR.
Yeah, Beverly.
I know, there's a
Salem.
big.
And to your point though, I utilize their procedures as a scaffolding in concert with Dr. Khan, Katie, Emily, Sergeant Jordan, a bunch of Jay Pillai, who from Allevia Health, to kind of put this all together. The biggest concern that I had going through this is it's a medical device and it's prescribed under Katie's license. So I wanted to make sure that as far as the city was concerned, that there's no liability on the city and we can remove as many barriers as possible to get these to people, to your point, Commissioner Bradley, to remove how much you would have to pay to at least just try it. And if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you, but at least you have the opportunity to try without having to fork out 800, however much.
$1,300. Well, I think it's progressive policy and helpful.
Yeah.
And like you said, it advances wellness. And so it's, and I like how, Maria, I like how we're getting some themes too in the policies here. That's nice. Thank you.
One thing we didn't mention is, that we have a lot of veterans that work for the Eugene Police Department, and veterans can access these devices through the VA and get them paid for, and in addition to the pain device that we mentioned. So that's a part that we're sharing too, that if they try it here and it's something that is beneficial to them and they're a veteran, they can utilize that resource, even though they're not really covered under insurance. There are scenarios that our insurance specific source has said that they would be covered, but it has to be, they have to have a diagnosis of anxiety or insomnia. They have to have, it has to be deemed a durable medical device. And there's some boxes that have to be checked, but there are scenarios where they could get it partially covered or covered under insurance, but it's a lot harder road than the VA.
This is probably nitpicky, but on E, this is under reporting device issues. It talks about the possibly experiencing either a side effect or a device issue and different ways that you can report that. I just want to make sure in your procedure that it's really clear that they need to report a device issue, because it seems like these are getting checked out by multiple people. And so I just want to make sure that people are indeed reporting to you that there is a device issue rather than FDA.
Yes, that would be awesome. On the checkout, there's when they turn it back in, if there's anything that they've noticed or it's run out of supplies or something like that. And then hopefully one of the three of us will be going through the packs and just making sure that everything's there and it's operating. But yes, totally, because I'd hate for a device to go and not work and then it get checked out by someone else.
So my question is, are you suggesting maybe changing it from are encouraged to notify, rather changing that to should notify?
maybe that,
Yeah.
and then at the end, it says, or self-report to the FDA, and you might say, and may also report to the FDA. I don't know, it's just,
Oh, yeah.
just,
Doesn't-
making
Like
sure
they-
that they are.
They self-report to the FDA, yeah. Okay, yeah, I like that. But I think that's, yeah, they should notify the contract QMHP first and foremost.
Right,
or
right.
One of the team, yeah.
One of those other-
Was there any more? Okay. I looked up therapeutic inequivalence, and frankly, it seems to be a kind of industry term, especially when we're talking about generic pharmaceuticals versus I mean, in terms of pharmaceutical equivalents, so where we have, I don't know if you all have ever heard of like certain generics versus name brand, even though they have the same ingredients, they have different impacts on people. There's a spot on the actual FDA website, so I think this is really FDA phrasing. Therapeutic inequivalence can also refer to medical devices that are not having that same desired effect, or maybe, I don't know, so. It's
Equivalent
not from
to
out of.
what?
I think to the regular course of treatment.
Yeah, I looked up the definition of,
Yeah.
and I found equivalence, not inequivalent.
Oh, I was able to
And-
find inequivalence
And the
too.
equivalence was that it's not working the same way as the equivalent, and then that makes sense in the context of generic or name brand or.
What's the equivalent of this system?
Theoretically, any, depending or regardless of the brand name, so this is Alpha-Stim, but I think this is in terms of the whole, of these devices, of CES devices, even though they have you said kind of they've got the market cornered, but, there are other devices potentially, or is this the only one that exists?
There's other devices. You
Okay,
can, you
so I
can
think
buy
that's
CES
what they're
devices
talking
on,
about.
on Amazon if you wanted.
However,
However,
this one has a patent on it,
Oh,
and so
okay.
there's, I did have a couple people try to buy the cheaper versions off of Amazon, and there wasn't much happening, so. Yes.
Well, I don't know, I just wanted to say, since none of us knew really until we all looked it up, it seems to be kind of a term that is used, it's just whether we want to keep it in here or not, this is for a discussion, I don't care.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Amelia has just reported that her power went out, so her internet failed, so she was frozen, now she's gone, we're gonna go ahead and.
Sure. Yeah. All right, any other questions, concerns about this policy? This is procedure, I'm sorry, procedure 11.25. Hearing none, is there a motion to approve? A move, and a second.
Second.
Any debate or other questions? Hearing none, all who are in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Unanimously, thank you all. All right. And so now we're moving into closing comments. Commissioner Bertrand, would you like to start us out on your closing comments?
Thank you so much, Vice Chair. No closing comments. I just want to thank you all here for coming today, and also our guests. I appreciate your guys' insight and educating us on the matter.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Reagan.
I would echo those sentiments. Thank you, folks. It's been really interesting, and it's very pleasing, having worked on the subcommittee that worked up some of the policy originally, just to see it happening and see it working. That's very pleasing. We can all notice that the chief has left us, which is unusual for these meetings, and I know there was trouble planned for downtown tonight, so I suspect that is what he is about, and all I can do is wish him the very best of luck and all the support we can muster. And I'm going to indulge myself. Okay, I know we're supposed to be advising on policy and not else, but I just want to make a public statement, very briefly, if I may, that I wish the folks who are expressing perfectly righteous anger at the actions of the regime in Washington, will find a way to do so that is more effective in reaching our community and not expressing their anger by shouting at a building or at our officers who have shown the greatest courage and professionalism in trying to keep them safe. We're in a terrible situation, and we have every right to be furious about what is being done to our country, but that should not make us light our hair on fire and jump out the window in response. There are things we can do that are effective, and I hope people find them soon. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Espinoza.
I'd like to thank our guests for coming. It really makes me very happy that you've all taken this much time and energy to put back into the police department and to the officers and putting their needs, their mental health needs that high up. It's great to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Donovan.
I'd just like to echo the sentiment. Good work. I'll echo as well, and thank you so much for your time today and the tour and the test run. It's great.
You know, it's really was interesting, and I appreciate the work you all have done. It's very worthwhile.
Thank you all. I'm sitting here contemplating taking a battery and putting something to my hair just to try anything. So now I have an alternative, and I appreciate it. No, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll say that I'm not authorized to speak on behalf of my employer or anything like that, but I've spent the last 6 years kind of at the epicenter of where there's protest activity in Eugene. And up until 2 weeks ago, when we had to abandon that location out of safety for our consumers and out of safety for our staff. And the Eugene Police Department has been very helpful and kind to us. Also, our federal law enforcement partners in the Federal Protection Service have spent a significant amount in the physical security officers have spent significant amounts of time and effort trying to keep everyone safe. And also my observation of the protests are that the protests are not the problem. There's some incredible people who are organizing, working those protests, including folks like Veterans for Peace and the Raging Grannies and, you know, all these other groups. There is a group of about, at any point in time, my observation, my counts when I walk by and or have to go out and try to engage and try to mitigate problems, is that there was, you know, between a dozen to maybe at peak times 24 people who moved past their First Amendment rights and into violations of law that were the problem. And so it's a very, very small number, I believe, of our neighbors who are actually causing the majority of the problems. Also, I'm reminded by and hopeful that all this energy that is being spent on protest can be channeled into civic engagement, into working the process so that perhaps some of the protests aren't necessary in a couple of election cycles. The energy, like Commissioner Rady had mentioned earlier, the energy, the time, the money that's spent in what results in maybe some catharsis for people, if that were spent in a specific district or districts in specific races in elections, may have real impact on public policy and, of course, you know, the policies that we even work on here. So as President Obama said, don't boo, vote, you know. So those are my thoughts about that. Also very encouraged by the emphasis on wellness that the department has. One of the things we know, and it's maybe trite now, but trauma causes trauma, or hurt people, it's, maybe it's overused, but the reality is that when you have law enforcement who are exposed to situations, that are frankly the worst of humanity, on a regular and recurring basis, it has a prolonged and complex impact. And having an emphasis on wellness, intentionally writing it into the policy, and having, even more important than that, having Chief Skinner and other leadership invested in advancing wellness proactively, that's going to make significant difference, and it will make us all healthier and will not perpetuate this cycle of trauma that we have been in for hundreds, thousands of years. Those are my comments. Anything else from city staff or department staff?
No, thank you for your time. Appreciate your attention.
Commissioner Bertrand, you didn't call him to me.
Oh, I think it did, but I'll ask him again.
Oh,
Mr.
I'm
Bertrand.
sorry, just check.
No, that's okay. No, I appreciate you.
He started off.
I started with
Oh,
Mr.
you-
Bertrand.
That's correct. You started off with.
Would you like to say anything?
Oh, no, nothing additional. No.
Okay, all right. That's the conclusion of our agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn?
No.
All right, and second.
Second. I
All in
don't think
favor?
you need that. Your chair, you can just shut us off.
I
Hit
don't,
the switch.
I don't want to shut anybody down. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All right, passes unanimously. Thank you all. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Are polls still operating on duplex UHF, or is that changed? I've been gone about 10 years. I used to know